Can having Hashimoto's make you feel irritable? The answer is yes. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Sarah Peternell. I'm the owner of Family Nutrition Services here in Denver, Colorado, and I'm the creator of the 30-day online program called Nourished and Renewed with Hashimoto's. Today begins a very exciting new set of videos all about case studies. Stories about the people that I've been working with in my nutrition practice. And I'm going to be picking topics about things that I think resonate with you, my viewers. Today, I want to answer the question about whether or not having Hashimoto's could be the underlying cause contributing to why you feel so darn irritable lately. It's true. When you have a chronic condition, when you have autoimmune disease, when your thyroid isn't functioning well, and when you're suffering the myriad hypothyroid symptoms that accompany this illness, yes, you can in fact feel very irritable. There are a number of reasons why, but there are some specific nutrient deficiencies which may contribute to why you are just not feeling like yourself. Today I'm going to talk about my client, Mary. I'm going to keep my clients' names and information private, but for the purposes of sharing Mary's story, this is an actual person that I have worked with in my nutrition practice. And in fact, Mary is a lot like other people I have worked with as well. But specifically, I want to tell you about Mary's story. She came to me a while back. She had been diagnosed with Hashimoto's in her 20s. And actually, she was just diagnosed with hypothyroidism until years later when she had a baby and she found out that it was actually Hashimoto's. She had been taking levothyroxine for many years and seemingly doing pretty well with managing of her condition. As Mary got older and entered into her late 40s and early 50s and began the transition into perimenopause and menopause, she started to notice that she felt like her hypothyroid symptoms had returned. Like many women going through perimenopause and menopause, the first thing that she noticed, in addition to obviously the irregularities of her menstrual cycle, was that she felt like she was absolutely sick and tired of everyone in her life. Her family was driving her crazy. Her work was annoying her. Even little things like sitting in traffic. She just felt like her fuse was very, very short. She'd started to lose some of her joyfulness, her zest for life, her motivation. And on top of, just the other hormonal changes that were taking place, she wondered if some of the things that were going on up here in her mood and in her mind were perhaps the beginnings of some of these changes that might have been accompanying the return of hypothyroidism. So when Mary came to visit me in my practice, she had already been to visit her endocrinologist, her primary care doctor, and her OBGYN. She's a smart cookie, and she knew that it was time to get a wellness check in each of these areas. She came to me with a handful of new lab work that we were able to utilize in assessing some of the situations which might be contributing to how she was feeling. She wanted to really uncover and understand what was the root cause, not just for the perimenopause symptoms and for some of the other stuff going on, but primarily why her mood had worsened so much in such a short period of time. Well, first of all, it was true in looking at her labs from her endocrinologist that her thyroid was not being well regulated. The medication that she had been taking for years was no longer the right fit in terms of medication. And also, she was working with her doctor on an adjustment to the dosage of her medication. So that was the first thing. And she was wise to start by working directly with her doctor to make sure that her medication was actually part of the picture, part of the solution for her. Secondly, she had had a complete blood workup with her primary care doctor, and so we knew by looking at some of her other labs that things were just a little bit off. We noticed from looking at some levels of her iron and ferritin that perhaps some of the menstrual irregularities, including a few months of heavy bleeding, even blood clots, and potentially something that might have been like a fibroid tumor, had led to iron deficiency anemia. And she was feeling quite fatigued and weak because of this. Also, she had had some workups and a full physical exam by her gynecologist. And looking at some of her hormone labs told us that, in fact, her luteinizing hormone, LH, follicle stimulating hormone, FSH, her estradiol, her progesterone, and her free testosterone were also starting to fall outside of the normal range, in fact, confirming that she was in perimenopause. So we had some good data to start with, but I knew from the holistic nutrition perspective, we needed to take a look at what was going on with nutrient acquisition inside of her cells. In addition to feeling irritable and having some pretty pronounced mood changes, Mary also was experiencing some significant changes with her skin, her hair, and her nails. And she had gained weight right along the middle of her body. Well, with perimenopause being imminent, certainly we knew that some of the changes happening with estrogen were contributing to this little muffin top weight gain of about 5 to 10 pounds. But I had a suspicion that Mary was not digesting her foods well and was not getting adequate nutrition. Here's where I bring in my notes to tell you some of the exciting specifics. So the first thing was that we actually did a test for Mary in my office that told us that Mary was positive for 2 copies of the variant alleles of the MTHFR gene. You can watch my other video about the MTHFR gene. What this told us, because she was compound heterozygous, was that in fact, this particular genetic feature, in addition to some of her deficiencies, which I'll share in just a moment, may in fact have been contributing to some of her poor mood that was really affecting her quality of life. Because she had these variant alleles, she was not able to properly acquire and utilize some of the B vitamins that are really important for brain and mood health. In particular, folate, which is vitamin B9, and also B12. So after learning that Mary had 2 variant copies of the MTHFR gene, we went on to do a further study of her nutrient acquisition by looking at the SpectraCell micronutrient test. This is a wonderful test. It is a blood test, and it looks at a variety of different vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and antioxidants, and how well they are absorbed into the lymphocyte cells of the immune system. So really old living cells in the body. What we found out from doing that test was that indeed Mary needed a full repletion of B complex vitamins. She was deficient or nearly borderline deficient in all of her B vitamins, but especially folate and B12. And this was not too surprising because we actually had seen with the 2 copies of the variant alleles of MTHFR that perhaps having some issues with absorbing folate and B12 might have been concern, and they were. In addition, Mary, although she consumes animal meat, was also not getting enough carnitine in her diet. Carnitine is an amino acid, and it could have explained some of the reasons why both Mary was experiencing kind of like this brain fog or kind of this cognitive issue. She was having difficulty functioning and focusing. That really caused her to feel quite irritable. And I had some suspicions that perhaps she was missing some of these essential and important nutrients for memory and mood health, like carnitine. Furthermore, Mary was not sleeping very well, and being deprived of sleep will certainly make a person cranky day in and day out. Mary's SpectraCell revealed that she needed both choline and inositol. Choline is another nutrient that is very supportive of our brain's function. In fact, choline is one of the nutrients that we know today is very important for the growth and development of a brain for a fetus in utero. And it's just as important for adults, especially during big life transitions like into perimenopause and menopause, and also for protecting our brain as we get older and as we age and we want to age gracefully. Inositol is another nutrient that kind of is like a B vitamin, so it made sense that she was having another deficiency in this category. Inositol helps to support the health of the ovaries and also helps us to regulate energy and is also a very calming nutrient in the body, and she was low in this as well. Finally, as if it wasn't the straw to break the camel's back, but Mary was also very deficient in magnesium. No wonder she felt like a giant bundle of nerves. She was irritable, she was tense, she was anxious, and she was low in magnesium, which is a very calming and very nervous system supportive mineral. So I was able to work with Mary specifically on the therapeutic repletion program that works just for her, a personalized supplement regimen. Having Mary take the methyl forms of a B complex vitamin to help support her utilization of the most important B vitamins because she has the MTHFR 2 variant alleles status, that's called compound heterozygous. We were able to get her on some methylfolate and some methylcobalamin, which is B12, in addition to the other supportive B vitamins like B6 and B5 for stress, as well as niacin and riboflavin and inositol. So we gave her a really supportive B complex vitamin to help support mood, memory, energy, and so on and so forth. In addition, Mary is an animal protein eater. She's an omnivore, but she wasn't acquiring the types of amino acids, including carnitine, that she needed from her diet. So I worked on a special addition to her B vitamins that included some intrinsic factor so that Mary would be able to better absorb, in addition, B12, but also to help with some of the carnitine absorption. Mary was also taking a carnitine supplement between meals, and we were focused on the clean and grass-fed as much as possible sources of meat. So grass-fed beef and bison, occasionally some lamb, even elk and some other game meats, plus duck and dark meat, organic chicken, and of course, ongoing consumption of wild-caught fatty fishes. Because of the MTHFR variation, we worked hard to increase Mary's consumption of green leafy vegetables, and that included both a daily smoothie with either spinach, kale, collard greens, bok choy, or dandelion greens, all of which are great sources of minerals like magnesium as well as folate. Or we had her consuming in some of the colder months a lot of soups and some of the sauteed greens like I just described. Mary had a challenge to consume roughly 5 to 10 servings of green leafy vegetables per day. That's a lot. One serving of green leafy vegetables is about what would fit in the palm of your hand, and she was really working hard to eat 5 to 10 servings. A lot of times it was a big salad or a soup or a smoothie, but she was also just working hard to sprinkle things like arugula on a sandwich, or to ensure that she was getting additional vegetables throughout the day when she could have otherwise just omitted them. Mary was committed to her whole food approach to eating, not just shopping at Whole Foods, but to eating foods in their most natural state the way Mother Nature intends. Mary got back into the kitchen and started focusing on some of the recipes that I gave her and the meal plans, which supported brain health, hormone balance, MTHFR variabilities, as well as her Hashimoto's. Because Mary has Hashimoto's, she does best to consume the majority of her calories earlier in the day, when her thyroid function is at its strongest, and also to help support those natural circadian rhythms of things like cortisol being strong in the morning and being supportive of getting more towards melatonin production in the evening. Previously, she had been eating a lot of carbs late in the afternoon and even past dinner. And those might have been some of the reasons why she was having trouble falling asleep and staying asleep. Finally, to round out her nutrition plan, I worked closely with Mary on a doable self-care approach. It's not always easy to take good care of ourselves. Mary has 3 kids. 2 of them were late in high school and very busy, very active, and also applying to colleges. Her mind was in a million places. She was so busy thinking about her family, working hard at her job, that she actually had forgotten that making self-care a priority was important to her. So she started a ritual of weekly Epsom salt baths, spending time putting her feet up and reading her favorite magazine when it came in the mail. Also, meeting up with friends as much as she was able to for window shopping or a relaxing cup of tea or a glass of wine. And she'd also made it back to the yoga studio. I was very proud of her for doing that. So she had found some ways to cope with some of the new stressors in her life, as well as to support her total body health, her endocrine health, her hormone balance, and her mind and her mood. Mary's story is not unfamiliar to me in my practice. Mary being someone who was just on the cusp of menopause and dealing with a resurgence of Hashimoto's and hypothyroid symptoms, not to mention the mood changes that can come along with it, is something that I see with a lot of women in my practice. I want to give Mary so many kudos for the efforts that she made for her own self-intuition and guidance that brought her to meet with me and to work closely with her entire care team to adjust medication where it was needed, to stay on top of her wellness exams and know what her labs looked like. That was a huge step in the right direction. And to knuckle down and do the work and to take self-care into her own hands and to work on feeding herself well and not just worrying about everybody else and their own tastes and preferences when it came to the cooking that she was doing for her family. So these case study videos are designed to hopefully connect with you wherever you are at on your journey and to let you know some of the insights and ideas that may support you as you work to resolve some of your own symptoms and your own issues or concerns with having Hashimoto's. I'll be pinning some of the links down below to resources that you can check out for further reading as far as it pertains to Hashimoto's and irritability and all of the different types of mood and brain symptoms that may come along with it. Now, just because Mary was in her perimenopause, menopause years of life doesn't mean that's the only time that irritability can affect a person. And certainly it can affect men as well. So check out these links, and thank you so much for watching. Be sure and check out Nourished and Renewed with Hashimoto's if you're looking for a hands-on approach, 30-day, self-paced but guided with over 9 hours of in-depth video courses and handouts to help you learn more about your diagnosis with Hashimoto's. I'll see you soon with more videos on my YouTube channel. Take care, and thanks for watching.